It's story time again, and this will be the third recap of the Blood of Heroes, the Four Horsemen game. So in the previous session, our heroes, Punisher, Morbius the Living Vampire, Night Thrasher, and Ghost Rider, signed a contract, Lucifer contract, making them basically the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse for until they defeat Lilith. The signature of the contract was one of the thing I forgot to mention, but everyone signed the contract. Morbius took, of course, a sample of his blood to sign the paper. But Punisher drew his Magnum 45 and shot the paper as a signature, so it was pretty interesting. And Lucifer then explained to them what they maybe some hints of what to do next. He told them that a trumpet was stolen from a museum in Boston, and that Lilith was in the process of enchanting this trumpet to of course, to blow in it, but to make to just make the apocalypse happen, to sound the trumpet, and the first trumpet of a series of 7 trumpets. So the Four Horsemen got onto their motorcycle and rode towards the Old South Church in Boston. So Lucifer just told them to go there if they were looking for a special lady. So they were on this bridge crossing a river, and Morbius was gliding into the air, and he saw a figure in a coat with a hood, with shades on, and this coat had a camouflage motif. And as they approached the bridge, this figure just jumped into the bushes on the other side, on the other side of the river. So Morbius thought it was very strange. So he flew over there, and he didn't saw the man. So he started to do these figures, and he started to glide lower and lower, and he got under the bridge. He wanted to see if this guy was hidden under the bridge, maybe, and he saw these packets of explosive on every pillar of the bridge, and he just had time to say to his friend, "Watch out!" And boom, there was a big explosion, and Morbius disappeared into a cloud of particles, and he just vanished. And then behind the Four Horsemen, the bridge started to collapse. Every pillar was timed perfectly, and as the destruction was going on, it created a wave towards them. So it was at this point they had to stop on the bridge, so they were not rolling. So the wave of destruction was coming toward them. Punisher just left his bike there, and he jumped off the bridge directly into the river. Night Thrasher just sent a swing line on a lamppost and glide, and he glided just as a wave was destroying his super expensive motorcycle. And Ghost Rider just did the stuntman jump directly into the river with his Hellfire motorcycle. So as Punisher got his head out of the water, the hooded man took off his hood on the other side of the river, and it was Shotgun, an old war buddy of the Punisher turned mercenary. So as Frank got out of the water, Shotgun shouted, "Hey Frank, how's it going?" And he threw like a grenade launcher into his direction. So Frank just said shit, and he plunged into the water and swam as fast as he could. But then the grenade hit the water, and everyone heard this huge explosion and saw this huge water geyser rising into the air. So Morbius continued to glide over the river with one of his wings kind of damaged, and he was trying to ram Shotgun on the beach, but my player rolled a natural double one, so it's a critical failure. So just before he could ram Shotgun, his damaged wing failed him, and he just like badly plunged into the water and did a roll on his body, and he just crashed on like 1 inch of water, and it was not a good landing. So Morbius fought some Shotgun. He definitely got his hand on him, but Shotgun was like very tough. He's like a Punisher guy. He's very experienced in combat. So then suddenly Ghost Rider got out of the river with his bike all wet, and as he rolled on the beach, began all the moisture on him and water began to evaporate, and at some point he burst into a fire again, and he just got out of his bike and started to walk slowly towards Shotgun. There was a darkness over the river on the other side of the river. There was this zone of darkness that spread in all the area, and Punisher and Night Thrasher in the river got attacked by a creature, a man with pale skin. So Punisher was hit, and he was slowly swimming back to the surface, and Night Thrasher picked him up and helped him to go to the surface. They fought a man in complete darkness, a man who they recognize by the name of Blackout, an enemy of Ghost Rider. But at some point, after Punisher shot some rounds into his direction, Blackout just jumped into the water and disappeared into the darkness of the river. And of course, the combat ended with Ghost Rider grappling Shotgun, lift him into the air, and looking straight into his eyes, and burn the poor man to a skeleton as a way of vengeance. So after this little encounter, they felt something strange, and they saw these huge creatures coming out of the rivers. Huge, deformed, panther-like, huge monster. They each recognize as a mount of the apocalypse. Somewhat during the combat, their distress, their adrenaline had summoned the creature of the 4 Horsemen. So they had a little moment with them, try to understand and to know this creature, and as they mounted the creature as their new means of transportation, they each transform into a mythical version of themselves. Punisher became this armored war figure. Ghost Rider became even more hellish with longer spikes and and black stuff coming out of his mouth. And Morbius became one with this creature. He became like a half hellish centaur mixed with his creature. Night Thrasher had this beautiful stallion, and he became like a very leader-like, very impressive. So they continue their voyage towards the church, and as they arrived at the church, they saw Morbius spotted in the darkness, a figure in the tower bell, or the bell tower of the church. So most of the other got into the church to search for the trumpet, as Morbius and Ghost Rider flew into the air and talked with this woman, and they recognized her as Lilith. So Lilith was very condescending, very overconfident, very megalomaniac in some way, and they start to tease them. At one point, Punisher just took his epic, mythical Gatling chainsaw weapon, his version of the Sword of Doom, and he just fired volleys after volleys after volleys in the direction of the bell and Lilith. Doing so, he made the bell ring and activated a ritual that Lilith had cast before. So a vortex appeared and a Hellgate formed just behind Lilith. And of course, the bullet just passed through Lilith because it was not her for real. It was a projection. So they basically, she basically said to them, you know, the trumpet is not here. I'm not that stupid. I know there are people in the hells that don't want me to succeed. So I just brought the trumpet in my own little domain in the hell to finish the enchantment, and then I will reappear anywhere on earth, and I will just ask my little minions to play it, to sound the first sound of the apocalypse. So ta-ta. So she disappeared in a cloud. But the Hellgate was still there, and Morbius turned to his comrade and said, if the trumpet is there, we have no time to lose. We don't know if this Hellgate will stay there. So he just plunged into the Hellgate, and the other just joined in, and the four of them went basically to hell. And as they fell to in this fire tunnel straight to hell, they were ripped off their mount, and they lost all their mythical appearance, and they landed hard on hellish, ashy ground. So they noticed that they had changed back, but this time back to their own skin. After some time in hell, they found a large palace in the horizon, a palace that was strangely felt out of place in this environment. The architecture was very alien, and it was like a pleasure resort of sorts. So they entered the palace and saw Lilith with all the innocent souls that she had taken tonight, naked and chained to the walls, pleading for mercy and pleading for freedom, making the four horsemen even more angrier. And there was a woman next to her, and they recognized her as the lady who was murdered at the beginning of the night, the lady who worked at the groceries. And there was this pit in the middle of the room. So Lilith smiled and said, it's a shame you lost your power of the horsemen. They only work on Earth, and they won't work here in my little tiny domain of hell. I'm sorry, you made all this for nothing. You made all this road for nothing. So the Punisher got his firearm and took the opportunity. He aimed for Lilith and as quick as he could. And as he was about to squeeze the trigger, he saw his gun being knocked away by Night Thrasher's Eskrima stick, and fighting ensued. You see, prior to that, during their first speech with Lilith atop the bell tower, at some point she looked very quickly into the eyes of Night Thrasher, and she used her control power. You see, Lilith is the ultimate succubus. She knows the key to the hearts of men. And Night Thrasher missed his control role by a lot. So he was like very enwrapped by or fascinated by Lilith, and he could not he could not allow for her to be hurt. So he just knocked Punisher's weapon and he started to fight him. There was a fight. At one point, Night Thrasher regained his composure by Morbius, who shook him and told him straight to his face, "Come on, man, snap out of it," something like that. And Punisher was dominated on his turn after making Lilith very angry, and she just imposes her will upon the Punisher and just told him, "Jump into the pit." So he was like running for the pit, but he was tripped by Night Thrasher, who just fought with him to prevent him to jump into the pit. And Ghost Rider used his chain on the mother of monsters and demon, but of course she's a goddess, so she's really tough. They did some damage, but she's really tough, and she has this power of invulnerability, so she's very, very hard to fight. So they fought and they fought and they fought, and the fight was not going one way or the other. It was really a battle of endurance. And then at one point, a strange calm filled the room, and they heard someone singing very slowly and calmly, like. They turned around and they saw this man in a white suit with a very familiar face. And the face was Louis Armstrong, the famous jazz trumpetist and singer. And Lilith seemed to recognize him not as a human, but some kind of an angel. And she warned him, you cannot come here. This is my little tiny domain. You cannot come here. And he said, "Oh, I had permission. I did my best Louis Armstrong impression, telling Lilith, listen, I'm just here for a message. You cannot start the apocalypse without 77 souls. Innocent souls." And Lilith turned around and saw, of course, I have these 77 souls. And the angel said, Well, prior to your machination, I was sent to Earth to make sure that you didn't take any innocent soul tonight. So everybody you got here is not according to contract. These are not innocent souls. You don't have it. The trumpet, all your plan is a failure. And I'm here to tell you that in several minutes, your tiny domain of hell will return to their former owner and you will be kicked out of here. I'm sorry, lady. So Lilith was super pissed off, and then she was sucked into the pit as along with some of her minions, and it was done. The four horsemen helped heaven in some way by standing up in front of this. It felt very appropriate after such a long combat to have this calm resolution and have this smiling face greeting the players and telling them from now on it's all okay. And he showed them a vision of him coming to the hospital just before the explosion and calmly inviting some chosen one, to just follow him outside for a walk, for a little show of music and jazz, and just a walk into the night. And it will be revealed later on that most of the building was empty when it came crashing down on some poor victims. Morbius approached the angel and asked him if he was to find peace and become a good man. And the angel told him that tonight he did some very nasty thing. He let the better of him being overrun by anger and hunger for blood and all the darkness in him. He placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and he told him, from now on, just try to be a good man and try to do your best. And you did not tonight, so I cannot guarantee that you will find peace. But from now on, brother, try to be a good man. So the four horsemen returned to Earth by jumping into the pit, and that was that. Hell, the domain of Lilith was erased from hell, and our four heroes returned to Earth. They were, for little tiny moments in time, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and they chose to prevent it. And this is the end of the story.